Learning to effectively search the internet for the information that you need is probably something that you already know how to do. And when you're talking about cybersecurity and hacking, it is probably one of the most powerful skill sets that you're going to learn how to develop, if not the most powerful skill set, because it'll come down to security analysis, threat intelligence, hacking techniques, finding exploits, finding vulnerabilities, and literally dozens of other things that falls under this giant umbrella of cybersecurity. And search skills is something that you need to develop as a security analyst, ethical hacker, penetration tester. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this particular video today, which is a part of the Cybersecurity 101 pathway of TryHackMe, and of course a part of the Cybersecurity 101, the CySec 101 training series on this particular channel. Alright, in our intro, what we're gonna do is we're going to do a couple of experiments here. So if we search Google for the phrase learn cybersecurity, for instance, at the time of that specific class right here, there were 600 million hits, right? So if I go at the very top right here and I click on tools, we'll see on the top right where it says there's 540 million results. So it actually has decreased in number, right? So if we go and do another one, so for example, learn hacking. So if we search Google for learn hacking and look at the number, we have 955 million results. So interestingly enough, the number has actually gone down. So right here it says the number might have grown even further, but it's actually gone down compared to the numbers that were originally there. And it could be for a variety of reasons. You know, the websites that originally had those articles, they may not have renewed their hosting. They may have just shut down for whatever reason. Maybe the person is no longer developing content for that website. There's a lot of different reasons why content could be taken off from Google, or why it may no longer be indexed on Google. Maybe they went private with their content. There's a lot of different reasons, right? So the whole idea here, though, is that you can simply just search for content on Google and find a bunch of information. And we are surrounded by information. Information overload is a real thing. So do you prefer to surrender in the face of information overload and accept the first few results you get, or do you want to acquire the necessary search skills to find and access what you're looking for? And that is literally the whole goal of this video and this room in TryHackMe. So what we want to do is evaluate information sources, use search engines efficiently, explore specialized search engines, read technical documentation, make use of social media, and check news outlets to find the information that we need. And Google Advanced Search is a big deal. Google dorking and Google hacking is another big deal. We may cover it inside of this video. I have not done this room, so I don't know exactly what it is. But let's do this, right? So check how many results you get for learn hacking. At the time of this writing, we got 1.5 billion results. So we actually, I think we already did it, but let's do it one more time, see what we actually get. So if we do tools, it's 955 million. So it's not 9.5 billion. But then there's also this portion right here as well, where we are looking at all results. We're looking at any time, and you can do advanced search to do a bunch of various different search parameters to actually create an advanced search inside of Google. And I'm not gonna get ahead of myself, but that is one of your options as you're going through your search skills development. So what we're gonna do now is we're going to move on to our official first task here, or task number 2, which is the evaluation of search results. All right, obviously going through hundreds of millions of search results can be very overwhelming. So everyone can publish their writings. It may not necessarily even be true. It could be blogs, articles, social media posts, and all those things get indexed on the internet and on search results. And even in more subtle ways, editing a public wiki page can also be a version of a post or an internet update. And it makes it possible for anyone to voice their unfounded claims. Unfounded being the key word here. They can express an opinion about a practice of cybersecurity, future programming trends, how to best prepare for DevSecOps interviews, and again, unfounded, right? And technically, the content on this channel is a part of that, right? So it's our job as readers to evaluate the information, and we'll mention a few things to consider. So one of them is the source of the information. So who's the author or the organization publishing the information? Are they reputable? Are they authoritative on the subject matter? Publishing a blog post does not make somebody an authority on the subject. And some people feel like it is, because if somebody confidently says something, they're like, oh, maybe they know what they're talking about, but they could confidently be wrong, right? So evidence and reasoning. Check whether the claims that they're making are backed by credible evidence or logical reasoning. And we're seeking hard facts and solid arguments, not somebody's perspective or opinion. And this is one of the great things about cybersecurity and hacking, is that, you know, somebody could be as opinionated as they want, but ultimately their ideas need to be tested, because we are in a technical world. And if the idea doesn't work, then they could scream it from the top of the mountain. They're not going to be right. That's basically it, right? So it's like any information that I give you, if you try the information, so for example, a Linux tutorial or something, or Python coding or anything like that, if I give it to you and you try it on your computer and it doesn't work the way that it worked on my computer, then I'm wrong. And that's very important to understand. So being objective or biased is the whole tainting of the argument, for example, right? So if somebody is biased, then I feel like you shouldn't listen to them. It doesn't matter. That's why politics is like such a big thing, where it's like, it's so hard to find a source of news that is unbiased, and somebody at least has some kind of a bias. So evaluating whether the information is presented impartially, rationally, and reflecting multiple perspectives, that would be considered an objective point of view. We're not interested in authors that are pushing shady agendas to promote a product or attack a rival, right? Corroboration and consistency. Validating the presented information by corroboration from multiple independent sources. If multiple sources tell you that 2 + 2 is 4, you can probably rely on the fact that 2 + 2 is 4. If multiple sources tell you that if you put your hand in a fire, your hand is going to burn, you don't need to try it, although you can also try it and you'll burn your hand, and then you'll have your own evidence that, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't put my hand in a fire, right? So what do you call a cryptographic method or product considered bogus or fraudulent? What do you call a cryptographic method or a product that is considered bogus or fraudulent? Okay, so this actual search question only brought up an article that was related to TryHackMe itself. The response that we got from Google's AI is definitely not the answer that we're looking for. And the notice that we got from that Reddit article actually pointed us in the right direction. And I mean, that is technically what we're supposed to do anyways. We're supposed to search and find the response from the internet, and the internet has given us the response. So I believe the response that they're looking for in this case is snake oil. So a snake oil salesman, you've probably heard this before, where they misrepresent something, or they literally are selling you false information, false material. So snake oil is typically referred to as a bogus or fraudulent claim, and then a snake oil salesman is the person that is trying to get you to believe that fraudulent claim. So what is the name of the command that replaces netstat in Linux systems? And I'm going to say ns just because I feel like that would be it, and it's not the case. So again, use the preferred search engine. So that's what we're doing, right? So we're going to do this one. This one, I feel like it'll be a little bit more straightforward, and it is SS is the socket statistics, and it shows us that in multiple environments. So we have SS as our command abbreviated for netstat, and there it is. So we got our results. That is some basic researching that we just did right here. So evaluating search results. So let's talk about search engines if you don't already know. So obviously you know what Google is, you probably know what Bing is, you may have even heard of DuckDuckGo. And you may have, I'm sure you have actually, you've probably done a lot of searches. But something is called an advanced search when it comes out to Google. We already kind of saw the quick display of that as I clicked on advanced search. And almost every search engine allows you to do something like that. So when you put something inside of quotes, you get that beep is so ominous. I think it's the fire alarm here. When you put something in quotes, you indicate that you're looking for pages with the exact phrase. For example, you could be searching for passive reconnaissance to get phrases with that exact or results with that exact phrase. So let's actually do it. So we're going to search Google for passive reconnaissance without the quotes, right? And I click on tools, and we see that there's 7.7 million results, right? So if I put it inside of quotes now, then what we'll see, so actually let me make sure that this is done correctly. We put it inside of the quotes, and we should only now get results. And now we only have 35,000 results. Now see how big of a drop that is, right? Because it's bringing us results that have the phrase exactly passive reconnaissance. Then there's something called cite. So cite will actually point you and will only do your search inside of the contents of a website. For example, TryHackMe, and then looking for success stories inside of TryHackMe. Now, in this case, because success stories has been not separated or not combined with quotations, it may bring up everything that has to do with success. It may also bring up everything that has to do with stories. So if I do this, so for example, this is actually something that I do regularly. So if I do cite LinkedIn, because I'm searching through LinkedIn.com, and then I want to search for a recruiter, then I will get all of the recruiters on LinkedIn, and I can even do in site, so site URL or in URL, excuse me. There's a lot of different parameters that comes with Google dorking or Google hacking that you can do in URL, in title. But when you just do recruiter, it's going to show any page or any part of it. So it could be the actual title of the page that has recruiter in it. It could be inside of the description of the person's bio that has recruiter in it. There could be a lot of things that show up with recruiter, right? So if you want to do recruiter and then you also want to do Microsoft, for example. So let's see if we can get both of those, and then you'll get results in that regard. And we should actually be looking at the results. So there's 9 million results that show up with both of these. And then if I do recruiter by itself, and then look at the results, we'll see that there's 52 million results that show up with both of those. There we go. Then we get to zoom in, right? So that's something that you can do to combine your results and only search within the contents of a website. And the minus sign will allow you to omit results. So I can do pyramids minus tourism or minus tourism pyramids, for example. And you'll see tourism website that shows you anything about pyramids. So it says, for example, you might be interested in learning about pyramids, but you don't want to view tourism websites. So my bad. So you want to look at everything about pyramids, just don't show me anything that has to do with tourism. So you can do pyramids minus tourism, or you could do minus tourism searching for pyramids, right? So that's something else that you can do as well. You can also search for file type. So file type PPT cybersecurity, which stands for PowerPoint presentation. So PPT is the extension of a PowerPoint presentation. DOC would be a doc. And there's a lot of various types of file types that potentially store passwords in there. So one of the great things that you can do is go to a website called ExploitDB. And inside of this, we can do password and just search for that and then see if we can find password files, right? So password files, and there's nothing over here. So why don't I do this? Why don't I do site is exploitdb.com, so we can actually use some of the things that we're looking for. And then we're going to do password file and see if anything shows up. So we have password file disclosure, which is an Apple Mac exploit. We have visible systems password file, password exposure again, insecure proprietary password, so on and so forth. So that's a way that we can use the skills that we've already learned to search through the site exploitdb.com for password file, right? And there's another way that we can do this and say, so what is the extension of a password file? And it could be psafe or accdb. That could be the extensions of a password file. So if I now go into here and use what we got over here, let me put this back where it belongs. We go to file type, and instead of doing PPT, we can just do file type and do accdb. So let's see if that brings us anything. look at that. Now we actually have file types that show up that have ACCDB as the extension, and maybe I can even put a dot in front of it to make sure that it only shows. So now see, that doesn't bring any kind of a document for me because I'm actually looking for ACCDB as the extension. So there are a million different ways that you can use these things to try to find data. And there's a lot of crazy stuff. There's a lot of crazy things that you can do by just combining these different types of search mechanisms to get you some advanced search results. So there's something called the Advanced Search Operators list that you can check out, which is available on GitHub. And these are the various table of contents that you can use for advanced search operators. You can have them for mailboxes and messengers, cloud storage, operating systems, search engines, social media, coding, job searching, etc., etc., etc. So there's a lot of great stuff. Oh, there was one at the bottom right here that said password. Where is it? Password managers. Okay, there we go. Password manager. So there's a lot of different search operators that you can use for advanced search, and you should definitely make it a point to go study that, because I'm not going to spend time going through all of those operators in this video, but it is something that you can take advantage of for your further education. So how would you limit your Google search to PDF files containing the terms cyber warfare report? So what we're going to do is file type, and it's going to be PDF, and it's going to be cyber warfare report, and that would be our search, right? File type PDF, cyber warfare report. And what phrase does the Linux command SS stand for? So what does it say? Use your favorite search engine, and we're just gonna highlight that, search Google, and it says socket statistics. That's what it stands for. So we're gonna go here and we're gonna do socket statistics, just like that. And I mean, this one I didn't need to do any of these fancy search terms. I literally just had to Google that specific question. So very cool. So far, we're making some cool progress. So let's talk about specialized search engines. This is a really fun topic. All right, so Shodan is a really big one. It's a very, very powerful search engine, and it helps you find devices all across the internet. You can search for specific types of devices, versions of services that are running, for example, servers, networking equipment, industrial control systems, IoT devices. You can also see how many servers are running Apache 2.41, for example, and the distribution of that version across countries. And we can search for Apache 2.41 inside of Shodan, which will return the list of servers with the string Apache 2.41 in their headers. And then considering that, you can find the variety of search query examples that Shodan has to find a bunch of different types of data. So for example, if you want to find SSH on port 222 or 333, for example, if you want to find something that has to do with HTTP, there are even versions where you can search for countries or companies. So it's very, very interesting. I'm not going to go through all of that because I would be handing it to you on a silver platter, but it's a really, really powerful tool, and we may even need to use it to answer some questions. So then there's Census. It's similar to Shodan. However, Shodan focuses on internet connected devices such as servers, routers, webcams, IoT devices. Census focuses on internet connected hosts, websites, certificates, and other internet assets. Some of it uses, the use cases include enumerating domains that are in use, auditing open ports and services, and discovering rogue assets within a network. You may want to check these search use cases for Census, which is available at their website, of course, support.census.io, and you'll be able to find the information over there. And this is what it looks like. It's similar to what it looks like on Shodan, but again, it's connected to hosts. It's mostly focused on hosts instead of devices. And then we have VirusTotal, which is an online website that provides virus scanning services. I use VirusTotal all the time in my personal life, as well as all the exercises that we run for pen testing or security analysis. It's a massive database of essentially antivirus engines and what they have found to be malicious. So I'll show you this as an example because I just did it for one of the other videos that we did. So you can go to VirusTotal and you can either search for a file. So you can literally drop a file in here if you don't know if it's malicious or not. You can drop a file in there, you can drop a URL, or even search for IP addresses, hash values, so on and so forth. So if I search for this URL, because this was part of an exercise that we did, which is actually malicious URL, you will see that 14 out of the 96 antivirus providers have flagged this to be malware or malicious, right? And this is what it looks like right here. And then you can go into the details portion to get a bunch of different history, HTTP URLs, IP addresses that are attached to it, the headers that would be attached to it, meta tags, redirections, so on and so forth. And then you can even go in the community and see what other people have found. In this particular case, there's nothing. There's nobody in the community that messed with this, and I guess no alterations to this were made. But sometimes in the community section, you can actually see the various names that may belong to this thing and how it was changed, you know, across time, essentially. And that usually works with attachments because the name of the attachment is a lot of times changed, but the hash value of the attachment typically is not changed, and a lot of different things about that attachment may not necessarily be changed. So you can find a lot of that data on VirusTotal. It's a very, very powerful search engine. The screenshot shows the result of checking the submitted file against 67. And of course, ever since this writing, it's gone up to 96, which is very, very awesome. And then occasionally a file may be flagged as a virus or Trojan. However, this might not be accurate for various reasons. That's when the community members can provide more in-depth explanation, which is why we have detection, details, relations, behavior, community. All these tabs are available. However, in our particular case, for that specific domain name, these things did not exist because there were no relational IP addresses that were associated with it or relational domain names. It was just by that one file. Then there's have I been pwned. This is or have I been owned, I guess. And this is something that you can go in here and search for your email address to see if your email address has actually been submitted to data breaches, or it's been submitted to a spam website or something like that. And you can actually check it. And I run my email addresses against this database very frequently. And I have a handful of emails that have been pwned. And I can tell because I get so much spam email all the time. So I can definitely tell when my email addresses have been pwned, and then I create new email addresses to keep them from getting spammed and all. And I don't share those email addresses with the public because I do want to be able to receive important information, right? So that's actually a very, very useful website as well. And I do recommend that you check your email address against this database. It is haveibeenpwned.com, haveibeenpwned.com. And that will show you whether or not you've been pwned or owned, excuse me. So let's see. What is the top country with light TPD servers? And this is going to be a Shodan search. So we're going to copy this and we're going to go to shodan.io, and then we're going to search for light TPD. And the question says, what is the top country with those types of servers? So we come right here and we see top countries, United States by a mile, and then we have the Republic of Korea. So we're going to do United States, and that should be the answer. So what does the Bitdefender Falx detect a file with this hash value as? So if I go, and this is probably VirusTotal, yep. So we're going to go to VirusTotal, we're going to go back here, use the search, and then go here and drop in the hash, press enter, and they want the Bitdefender Falx, which is Android riskware, yada yada yada, and we're going to copy that and go here and paste that, and voila, there you go, we got it. That's super exciting. Very, very excited about it. So okay, so we have now used some specialized search engines. So let's talk about vulnerabilities databases. The CVE database, also known as the Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures database, is essentially a dictionary of vulnerabilities. It's massive, and all of the vulnerabilities that have been confirmed by a few different sources end up in the CVE database. And each CVE has an ID, which looks like this. And then what you may find when you run vulnerability scans is that there will be a vulnerability ID, a CVE ID assigned to whatever the vulnerability is that you find, especially if it's not a 0-day vulnerability. 0-day means that they haven't detected it before and it's their first time being detected. And so if it's something that has already been detected, there will be a CVE ID associated with it more often than not, 99.99% of the time. So the CVE 2024-2998, for example, has to do with, let's see what we can find in this case, Smart Screen Prompt Security Feature Bypass Vulnerability. And it has a very high base score. So each CVE is associated with a CVSS, a common vulnerability scoring statistic, common vulnerability scoring system, excuse me. So common vulnerability scoring system has the associated base score that's attached to it. And if it's a high, it's really, really important. And then above this, there's critical, which is also really, really important. And then there is the various vectors that it applies to. So you can say the attack vector in this particular case, let me make sure I can highlight it properly. The attack vector in this case is the network. The attack complexity is low. So meaning that the attack vector, they don't need to be on the local machine. They can just be access to the network and they can run this attack. The complexity is low, meaning any basic hacker could probably do this. There are no privileges required, so there's no password required, which makes it, again, just that's why it's ranked so high as far as severity is concerned. The user interaction is required, so there needs to be some kind of a user interaction required. The scope is unchanged. Confidentiality, the effect to your confidentiality on your system and your network is high. The effect to the integrity of your network is high. The effect to the availability of your network is high. So when you look at these potential vectors, then you can say, okay, well, now I understand why this thing has been ranked as a high base score. The MITRE Corporation maintains the CVE system, and MITRE is a very, very important organization. For more information to search for existing vulnerabilities, you can look at the CVE website. And then at the very top right here, you can search for the CVE number. You can also just do a Google search for the version number of something. So if I do Apache 2.4.52 vulnerabilities, then I'll see that there are vulnerabilities that show up from CVE details that are associated with it, from the Apache server website that have vulnerabilities associated with it. And if we actually go to the Apache server website and look at it, you can see that there are CVEs associated with each of the vulnerabilities that have been listed on the Apache website. So this doesn't even have anything to do with the CVE website directly, right? This is on the HTTP Apache website, and it just happens to be that they're measuring everything also with the CVE IDs that have been assigned to them. So the CVE database is very, very important. Then there's the exploit database, which we've already looked at. And there you find the CVE, right? You find a vulnerability, and then you go to the exploit database and you search for the vulnerability to see if there are any exploits that already exist, which makes it a nice 1-2 punch, like a jab, right hook kind of a punch. So there are many reasons why you want to exploit a vulnerable application. One would be to assess the company's security as the part of the red team. So you want to find exploits for that if you're given permission, obviously. And now you have the permission, you exploit the vulnerable system, you need to find a working exploit code. An exploit database is a very powerful list of exploits that are available for a number of different things, so many different things. So Heartbleed, for example, in this case, Heartbleed is the name of one of the attacks, the information leak that happened, and it's an open SSL TLS extension that obviously has an exploit attached to it. And of course there's GitHub, which you should also be familiar with, which is a platform for software development, but it also has a lot of different tools related to CVEs, along with proof of concepts and exploit codes, and even lists of password dictionaries that you can find that you can use for your exploits and for your attacks. There's a lot of stuff that's available on GitHub that you can go through and find something that may be relevant to what you're looking for. So if we check the screenshot below that are related to the Heartbleed vulnerability, right? So if you look at it, they searched for the CVE ID, and then from that there were 65 results that showed up, Heartbleed and Heartbleed and Heartbleed, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of different things that are associated with the Heartbleed vulnerability that are found on GitHub, or you can find it on the exploit database, so on and so forth. So our question here is, what utility does the CVE such and such refer to? So I'm just going to search Google for this, and it's going to take us to the National Vulnerability Database by NIST. And then we have what utility, right? So what utility does it refer to? And look at this. It is a 10 critical base score. So massive, massive base score in this particular case. So what utility does this apply to? So under the description, it says malicious code was discovered in the upstream tarballs of XZ, starting with version 5.6, so on and so forth. So this might be the utility. XZ, I think, is the actual utility. So let's see. Oh, that is indeed the correct answer. So XZ is the utility. I don't even know what that is. So let's see let's do some more searching, right? XZ utils, previously LZMA utils, is a set of free software command line lossless data compressors, including the programs LZMA and XZ for Unix-like operating systems from version 5 onwards, Microsoft to Windows. So that's what it is. It's a command line lossless data compressor is what XZ utils is. And now we know. So moving on to technical documentation. And then there is technical documentation. So manual pages are associated with pretty much every single software or operating system that exists in the world. So obviously Linux, being one of the most famous open source operating systems, has a bunch of documentation around it. So long before the internet was everywhere, how would you get help using a command in Linux or Unix-like system? The answer would be the manual page. So there are no articles on blogs and things like that. You literally just go through the manual. So man would be the short for it, and you could do man, and on Linux the command line would expose the manual for you typically. And each command is expected to have a manual page. So for example, ls stands for list, and you could do man ls or ls man, and it will show that to you, the manual for the ls command and all the different options that come with ls. So let's say you want to check the manual page for the command ip. You would do man ip, and then the screenshot below, which is this thing right here, shows you the manual page for the ip module, and then you press q and you quit out of it. And that's typically how it works with all of the other manuals inside of Linux as well. If you want to read the manual page of IP in your web browser, you would do man IP in your favorite search engine, and this might be at the top of the results. So let's actually do that. So we'll do this, and then we'll search Google for man IP, and then we have the Linux manual page right here, and we can open that up, and then we see that we have the manual page for the IP function inside of Linux. So very, very cool. The attack box that comes with TryHackMe is a Linux system, and it runs Ubuntu on it. And this is the case for all of the attack boxes that are associated with the TryHackMe website. So when you click the start attack box at the top, we'll display the attack box in a split screen, making it convenient to read the task text and apply the instructions within the same browser, because the attack box is connected to the TryHackMe network. If you want to use your own computer, you can use OpenVPN to connect to the TryHackMe network, and that way you can use your own machine. But then you would need all of the tools that comes with Kali Linux. So you would need to make sure all of those things are installed on your computer, or at least you're running a version of Kali Linux on your computer. That would be the best way to do it. Me, I use AttackBox for the most part because I don't want to download everything on my Mac, and the Mac that I'm running doesn't allow me to run Kali Linux from a USB drive. So when I do run Kali Linux from my USB drive, I use my Windows computer, and my Windows computer happens to be a lot faster than my Mac computer, so that makes it actually like an extra benefit. So it becomes really easy when you use the attack box on TryHackMe, and then you can just hide the attack box using the minimize button or the blue show split button right here. So I'll actually, well, I'm not gonna do it right now because I don't think we need to do it. So we can try to find hopefully all of the answers without opening the attack box. If I have to open the attack box, then I'll open the attack box. But there's a lot of the videos on this channel that we've used the attack box for, so it's fairly simple to use and very, very useful. And then, of course, there's a Microsoft Windows documentation page. And for them, there's ipconfig that shows you all of the IPs that are associated with your machine and your network. And then there's ifconfig that runs on Mac OS and Linux, which does essentially the same thing. The ipconfig command inside of Windows is much more organized, in my opinion. It actually just shows you IP addresses, and then if you want all the other data that's associated with each individual IP address, you run another option for ipconfig, and then you get more data. In Linux or Mac OS, when you run ifconfig, it shows you everything about each IP address, and it becomes a little bit hard to read the information. So in either case, you can go to the technical documentation page of Microsoft and then search for whatever you want and learn about it, which is very, very handy. And if you want to get good at Microsoft in general, this is a great website because they have a lot of training, documentation, certifications. All of those things are available inside of the learn.microsoft.com website. So I would highly recommend you check that out because more than 80% of the companies in the world use Microsoft as their OS, and they don't use Linux or Mac OS. So then there's product documentation. So Snort has official documentation. Apache HTTP servers have official documentation. PHP, the language, has official documentation. Node.js, documentation. JavaScript probably has documentation. Everything has documentation. If you want to get Python documentation, you go to the Python website and you look at their documentation. So there's documentation associated with literally every single product. It's the product manual. So, I mean, if you buy a computer, or if you buy a phone, or if you buy, let's see what's on my desk. If you buy a storage device, if you buy a mouse, if you buy a keyboard, there's going to be some kind of a manual that comes with it. And then if you lose the physical manual, you can always go to the vendor's website and find that manual on their website, like the documentation. So HP printers, if you go to the HP website, there's documentation about every version of printer that HP has ever created. So it's very, very useful. So CAT, I know for a fact, stands for concatenate. I believe that's how you spell it. There we go. Concatenate. And what it does is it displays the contents of a file on your screen inside of your terminal. So if you don't want to open the file to read it, you can just do cat and then the file name, and it'll just display the contents of that file inside of your terminal. The netstat parameter in Windows that displays the executable associated with each active connection and listening port. So what is the netstat parameter in Windows that displays the executable associated with each one? So what we're looking for is the option that goes along with netstat. So obviously I'm going to Google that. And in this case is -B. We'll list all the active connections and listening ports along with the executable. So let's see if -B is actually the correct answer. And it is. Excellent. So let us move on to the very final thing before we get to the conclusion, which is social media, finding data on social media. There are billions of users registered on social media platforms. Facebook just by itself has over 1 billion users. Twitter, also known as X, and then there's LinkedIn. There's a lot of users on there. So knowing the platform itself, knowing how to navigate these platforms is very important. And if you are aware of any platform that you aren't familiar with, you should probably go learn about it. So there's TikTok, there's YouTube, there's a lot of social media platforms. Technically, I guess YouTube doesn't really count as a social media platform, but I do consider it to be as such because there are massive communities on YouTube that interact with each other, and there's a comment section and you can communicate with people on there. So I consider it to be a social media platform. You would want to explore the platform without creating an account, ideally, but some of them require that you have an account. But if you do have the account, all of the limits from your exploration are lifted. So one recommendation is to use a temporary email address, like what I have for my persona, Hank Ackerson, to discover the platforms without linking them to your real email address. Once you're done, you can terminate the accounts and the associated email addresses. The reason that you don't want to use your primary account is that you don't want your contacts to start connecting with you when you're only temporarily exploring a platform. And if you're doing some kind of reconnaissance against someone, sometimes the platform says so-and-so just visited your profile. And you may not want them to know that you just visited their profile. So for example, LinkedIn actually shows that so-and-so, this many number of people actually checked out your profile. If you go to TikTok, it'll show how many people just checked out your profile today, and it'll show their name, their username. You can click on their profiles. So that is one of the reasons why you may want to hide your activities by using a persona, an alias, right? The power here is that you can connect with companies and people that you're interested in. Social media offers a wealth of information for cybersecurity professionals if you're searching for people or technical information. So why is this important? When you're protecting a company, you need to ensure that the people that you protect are not oversharing on social media. So for example, they don't have their work email in their bios, which so many people do on LinkedIn. Their social media might give away the answer to that secret question. Which school did you go to as a child, for example, which is one of the security questions that is available to verify somebody's identity. It's like, oh my gosh. Such information can allow an adversary to reset the password and take over their account effortlessly. Furthermore, as a cybersecurity professional, you want to stay updated with new cybersecurity trends, technologies, and products. Following the proper channels and groups can provide a suitable environment. So for Linux, there's a LinkedIn profile. For Splunk, there's a LinkedIn profile for their company, right? So if you follow the TryHackMe LinkedIn profile, then you'll get all the updates from TryHackMe as it happens, and you'll be up to date. So it's very important. Now, besides being updated via social media, we can also mention news outlets. I am relying less and less on news outlets lately, especially because of the fact that they are obviously very biased in a lot of regards. It's hard to determine what is factual and what is opinionated. So the only thing that I rely on when it comes down to news outlets is something that has to do with, a new technology being released, the date of the release, if a company is releasing a new product, or if a new company is going IPO, or something that has to do with more fact-based news than something that can be interpreted in a variety of different ways. So I tend to not rely on news websites. If you find news websites that have to do with cybersecurity, that's different. But if you go to NewYorkTimes.com, for example, you'll probably find a lot of opinion on there and then some facts. Same thing with LA Times, New York Post, Washington Post, whatever. These traditional news platforms tend to embed their opinion into a lot of their quote-unquote news. So you're hired to evaluate the security of a particular company. What is a popular social media website you would use to learn about the technical background of their employees? So we can do LinkedIn, I would say. Continuing with the previous scenario, you're trying to find the answer to the secret question, what school did you go to as a child? What social media website would you consider checking to find the answer to such secret questions? I would also say LinkedIn. That could be it. Oh, really? Huh, what social media website could you consider checking to find the answer to such secret questions? Okay, Facebook, I guess. Facebook could be a social media website that you would consider to find the answer to what school did you go to as a child. So that is what we got for the social media section. And now we're going to wrap it up. All right, so before we wrap it up, I want to give you an extra source of intelligence / data / research, so on and so forth. So if you go to Google and just search for list of AI language models, okay, you will get a bunch of stuff. So obviously there's GPT, there is Google's Gemini, GPT-3, there's Llama, Mistral AI, Claude, which is a really big one. Meta has their AI now. There's a lot of different companies that are now offering their own version of an AI, and Grok is from X or Twitter. There's a lot of them, as you can see right here. So these language models are amazing for doing research, especially if you have long form questions, or especially if you're trying to learn about something that is really hard to find on Google. So Google's Gemini, what it does is that it actually accesses a lot of the articles that are distributed and indexed on Google, and then you can search through the massive amount of data by using a long form question, and it'll give you a concise summary for your question. So this is one of the reasons why I actually like using Google's AI. But when I'm talking about, or when I want to go into really advanced topics and get really, really detailed, good information, I'll usually go to GPT. And GPT also has the function to be able to pull data from the internet now. But this is one of the amazing things about the current world that we're in, especially since the time that they created this room, the search skills room. Ever since then, AI came out, right? It seems to be that it was created 10 days ago, but in my humble opinion, I don't think this is current. I think one of the most powerful things that you can leverage when you're doing searching and when you're searching for data and intelligence would be to use a language model like GPT or Gemini or Grok or Claude or Meta AI, so on and so forth. So use that at your discretion. And once you have found the starting point of what you're trying to search for, go into the language models and have this back and forth conversation with them, because they may also reveal different sources of data that you didn't even consider, especially if you say, I'm looking for this type of data, I'm aware of these types of websites, what other websites can you give me that also cover this type of data? And I've gotten a lot of information about data intelligence websites and the different sites that I can use by communicating with an AI, because it literally does a lot of the work for you, and it delivers it to you in a concise, consumable format. So I would highly recommend that you get used to using these language models and making them your personal assistant, for lack of a better word. So that would be the last item that I would say is available to you as far as these various search options are concerned. Now we can wrap it up. So in this video and in this room, we focused on the most common source of information. Obviously, language models were not included, so it doesn't mean that we covered every source of information. We just focused on the most common. As information landscape keeps changing, it's impossible to cover all of the sources because there's just so many more sources that are constantly being added to the internet in all of these different platforms. And then we're not even including people's individual blogs, right? So that's something else to keep in mind, that there are some really powerful blogs that have been designed by thought leaders inside of cybersecurity that are the CEOs or founders of certain products and services that are actually very credible, because those guys were the ones that created these various tools and products and services that we use every day in cybersecurity. So we're not even including their blogs. We're not including their pages, right? We're just talking about these major platforms. So keep in mind that this is a massive, like vast world, and it's constantly expanding. So you will never have all of the information. Just keep that in mind. There's always going to be more information added, and it's up to you to stay current and up to date. All right, if you found this video useful and you would like to find other videos like this one, I do encourage you to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you get notified the next time that a video comes out, especially in the CySec 101 pathway. But you can also go and navigate through the rest of the content that is available on this channel. There's a lot of stuff on this channel, and you can find individual contents associated with various softwares or platforms, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of good stuff that's available, and it's constantly being updated, and there's more videos coming out all the time. So if you want to get notified of future content, make sure that you like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. And if you have a comment or a question, be in the comment section. I'm actually very active in the comment section. I respond to everybody as the comments come in because I get the notifications on my phone. So if I'm not in front of my computer, I'll respond to you from my phone. And if it's a big question, I will create a video in response to your question, and maybe even create an entire playlist like we had with the CySec 101 playlist that was inspired by a user's comment. So I do recommend that you drop a comment as well, because I will definitely respond to your question. And if you just want to say hi, or if you want to be, if you want to show gratitude, whatever it is, I love reading the gratitude comments as well. It gives me energy and motivation to keep going and to keep posting content for you guys. So that is what I got for you for this video so far. So make sure you like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and drop a comment so that we can communicate. And of course, you can get notified the next time a video comes out. And if you have not done so already, check out the Hackaholics Anonymous membership community. It is the premier YouTube community for security professionals and hackers. And this is my baby. This is my love child, so to speak. And I put a lot of time and energy into it. We have live streams for our advanced members at the end of the month. There are exclusive downloads, Python automations, exclusive content, a lot of great stuff. But even for the basic group, the very first group, the supporter group that you can get into for $4.99, you get a Discord server dedicated to you where you can get access to me and all of our advanced members. And you get to ask your questions. You get to have somebody follow along your path with you to help you along your cybersecurity journey. And it's something that I think is very, very important to have, because I didn't have it when I was coming up, and it would be amazing if I did, honestly. So that's why I didn't have the Discord server for the supporter group. And then after getting some requests from other people, I was like, you know what, we can probably just add a Discord server. So now the supporter group has a Discord server, so does every other advanced tier as well. And then there's all the other perks that are associated with it as well. So go check it out. It's a 14-minute video. It's not a long video. It breaks down all the perks that you would get access to. And if you don't want to watch it, if you just want to get a quick glimpse, you can click on this read more button at the bottom right here, and then go ahead and read the description. And all of the perks are also outlined in the description of the video. So check out Hackaholics Anonymous, the premier YouTube community for security professionals and hackers. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, your favorite network and system attacker / protector. Love, peace, and chicken grease. If no one else loves you, Hank loves you. And I'll see you in the next video. Later.